I should have known the moment Veronica's smile lingered 3 seconds too long on Phillip Ashworth's face. But there I was, Daniel Mercer, company IT manager, and apparently the world's most oblivious husband, making introductions at the annual corporate dinner like some twisted matchmaker. "Phillip, I'd like you to meet my wife, Veronica," I said, watching her extend her hand with the kind of grace she usually reserved for board presentations. "Veronica, this is Phillip Ashworth, my boss and the VP of Operations." The handshake lasted forever, or maybe it just felt that way because I was counting the seconds while nursing my third bourbon and wondering why the company had sprung for prime rib when they'd been cutting our IT budget for 6 months straight. "Daniel's told me so much about you," Veronica said, her voice carrying that professional warmth she'd perfected during her climb up the corporate ladder at Morrison Tech across town. "He says you're transforming the entire operations division." Phillip's chest puffed out like a peacock in a $3,000 suit. "Well, innovation requires vision, something I've been trying to instill in my team." His eyes flicked to me for half a second before returning to Veronica. "Your husband's been adequate in adapting to our new methodologies." Adequate. The word hit like a slap, but I kept my expression neutral. 20 years in this business had taught me when to smile and nod, even when your boss was essentially calling you mediocre in front of your wife. "Daniel's always been modest about his accomplishments," Veronica said, though her tone suggested she agreed with Phillip's assessment. "But I'm sure under your leadership, he'll reach his full potential." I excused myself to refresh my drink, leaving them to discuss my untapped potential. The bartender, a kid who couldn't have been older than 25, poured my bourbon with the kind of generous hand that suggested he understood the corporate dinner survival strategy. "Rough night?" he asked, nodding toward my table where Veronica was now laughing at something Phillip had said. Her hand rested on his forearm, casual, professional, but definitely there. "Just getting started," I muttered, taking a long sip. When I returned to the table, the conversation had shifted to Veronica's work at Morrison Tech. She was describing her latest project, some revolutionary customer management system that was supposedly going to transform how mid-sized companies handled client relations. Phillip hung on every word like she was revealing the secrets of the universe. "That's exactly the kind of forward-thinking approach we need here," he said, leaning closer. "Have you ever considered a change of scenery? We're always looking for innovative minds." Veronica's eyes lit up with the kind of ambition I'd seen her direct at every promotion, every opportunity, every chance to climb higher on the ladder of success. "I'm always open to new challenges." The rest of the evening passed in a blur of networking conversations and forced smiles. Veronica charmed everyone she met, from Helena Sinclair, the board chairman, to Margaret Voss from HR, who seemed particularly interested in Veronica's thoughts on corporate culture and employee development. "Your wife is impressive," Margaret told me during one of Veronica's trips to the ladies' room. "Sharp, articulate, ambitious. Phillip seems quite taken with her insights." I nodded and made some appropriate response about being proud of her accomplishments. But something in Margaret's tone suggested she was fishing for information, like she was already calculating the implications of Phillip's obvious interest. The drive home was quiet except for the radio playing some late-night jazz station. Veronica stared out the passenger window, her reflection ghost-like in the glass. "Phillip seems like an interesting boss," she said finally. "He's adequate," I replied, borrowing his word. "Good at taking credit for other people's work. Excellent at corporate politics. Mediocre at actual leadership." "That's a bit harsh, don't you think? He built that operations division from nothing. He inherited a solid foundation and slapped his name on it. Classic corporate climber move." Veronica turned to look at me, her expression unreadable in the dashboard light. "Maybe you should try learning from him instead of resenting him." "Learn what? How to take 3-hour lunches and blame the IT department when his pet projects fail?" "How to think bigger, Daniel. How to see opportunities instead of obstacles." We pulled into our driveway, the motion sensor flooding our front yard with harsh white light. Our house was a 1960s colonial that we'd been renovating for 8 years. Always another project, always another expense, always another reason why we couldn't afford the kind of lifestyle Veronica saw her colleagues enjoying. Inside, our daughter Chloe was sprawled across the living room couch, laptop open, earbuds in, completely absorbed in whatever teenage drama was unfolding on her screen. She glanced up long enough to wave at Veronica and ignore me entirely, standard operating procedure for the past 2 years. "How was the fancy dinner?" Chloe asked, pulling out one earbud. "Educational," Veronica said, kicking off her heels. "I met some interesting people." "Anyone famous?" "Just business contacts. But sometimes the right contact can change everything." I headed upstairs to change out of my suit, leaving mother and daughter to their bonding session. In our bedroom, I caught my reflection in the mirror. 43 years old, graying at the temples, carrying 20 pounds more than I should, wearing a suit that had been expensive 5 years ago, but now looked tired around the edges. Adequate. The word echoed in my head as I hung up my jacket. From downstairs, I could hear Veronica's voice, animated and excited as she described the evening to Chloe. She was talking about networking opportunities and career advancement and the importance of making the right connections. I'd heard this speech before. Usually it was directed at me, along with suggestions about being more aggressive in pursuing promotions, more strategic in building relationships, more willing to play the corporate game. But tonight, something felt different. Tonight, she'd found someone who embodied everything she thought I should be. I was brushing my teeth when my phone buzzed with a text message. Unknown number. "Great meeting your wife tonight. Looking forward to continuing our conversation about opportunities. PA." I stared at the screen for a long moment, then deleted the message without mentioning it to Veronica. Some instinct told me she'd already received her own version. 3 weeks later, I came home to find suitcases by the front door. Veronica was in the kitchen, methodically packing her coffee maker into a cardboard box. Not our coffee maker, her coffee maker, the expensive Italian thing she'd bought herself for Christmas 2 years ago. Everything about her posture screamed efficiency and determination. "Going somewhere?" I asked, though the suitcases had already answered that question. She didn't look up from wrapping the power cord. "I've been offered a position at Ashworth Industries, VP of Strategic Development. It's everything I've been working toward." "Congratulations. I didn't know they were hiring." "It's a newly created position. Phillip saw an opportunity and convinced the board to approve it." Of course he did. I leaned against the doorframe, watching her pack like she was defusing a bomb. Careful, precise, no wasted motion. "When do you start?" "Monday. I gave Morrison my notice yesterday." "Fast turnaround. Most executive positions require a longer transition period." Veronica finally looked at me, her expression mixing defiance with something that might have been guilt. "Some opportunities can't wait, Daniel. When the right door opens, you walk through it." "And what about us? What about Chloe?" "Chloe's 16. She's old enough to understand that sometimes life requires difficult choices." She sealed the box with tape, the sound sharp in the quiet kitchen. "As for us, we both know this hasn't been working for a while." I wanted to argue, but she wasn't wrong. We'd been functioning more like roommates than spouses for months, polite, distant, going through the motions of a marriage that had lost its foundation somewhere between mortgage payments and parent-teacher conferences. "So that's it? 20 years of marriage ends with a job offer?" "It ends with me finally admitting that we want different things." She moved to the cabinet, pulling out her set of wine glasses, another Christmas gift to herself. "You're comfortable with adequate, Daniel. I'm not." There was that word again. Adequate. "Let me guess," I said. "Phillip helped you reach this revelation." Her hands paused for just a moment. "Phillip showed me what's possible when you refuse to settle." "How generous of him." "Don't make this about him. This is about us. about the fact that you've been sleepwalking through your career while I've been fighting for every opportunity. I've been providing for our family, keeping us stable while you chased every promotion like it was going to solve all our problems. Stable. She laughed, but there was no humor in it. Is that what you call watching our friends buy vacation homes while we argue about whether we can afford to fix the roof? Our friends have different priorities. Our friends have ambition. Chloe appeared in the doorway, her face pale and confused. Mom, what's happening? Veronica's expression softened as she turned to our daughter. I'm taking a new job, sweetheart. It's a big opportunity, but it means some changes for our family. What kind of changes? I'll be living in the corporate housing downtown for a while, just until we figure out the logistics. Chloe's eyes darted between us. Are you getting divorced? We're taking some time to evaluate our situation, Veronica said carefully. But whatever happens between your father and me, you're our priority. I watched this conversation like a spectator at a tennis match, apparently not important enough to participate in decisions about my own family's future. Can I come with you? Chloe asked. I mean, downtown might be fun. There's more to do there. Something twisted in my chest. Not pain, exactly. More like the feeling you get when you realize you've been playing a game where everyone else knew the rules, except you. We'll work something out, Veronica promised. But for now, you need to stay here and finish the school year. Chloe nodded, though she looked disappointed. She hugged Veronica, then glanced at me awkwardly before heading back upstairs. She'll understand eventually, Veronica said, returning to her packing. Will she? Because from where I'm standing, it looks like you're abandoning your family for a job. I'm not abandoning anyone. I'm choosing growth over stagnation. You're choosing Phillip Ashworth over your husband. She stopped packing and faced me directly. He can give me the life you can't, Daniel. The opportunities, the security, the future I want. That's not his fault. And it's not really yours either. We want different things. I nodded slowly, processing the careful way she'd phrased it. Not, I love him, or I don't love you anymore. Just a cold calculation of opportunities and outcomes. When you put it like that, it sounds almost reasonable. I'm trying to be honest. Honest would have been discussing this before you made the decision. Would it have changed anything? Would you have suddenly developed the ambition to compete for executive positions? Would you have started networking and strategizing and fighting for advancement? She was right, and we both knew it. I'd been content with my IT manager position, my steady paycheck, my predictable routine. I'd never wanted to play the corporate politics game that came with climbing higher. No, I admitted. I wouldn't have. Then this conversation was inevitable. I'm just sorry it took me so long to have the courage to start it. She finished packing the wine glasses and sealed another box. The kitchen was starting to look unfamiliar, like a stage set after the props had been removed. I'll send for the rest of my things once I'm settled, she said, and we should probably discuss lawyers. Already thinking about the divorce? I'm thinking about being practical. We both deserve to move forward with clarity. I helped her load the suitcases into her car, a gesture that felt both civilized and surreal. 20 years of marriage ending with the same politeness we'd show to strangers. Take care of yourself, Daniel, she said, pausing with her hand on the car door, and take care of Chloe. That's what adequate husbands do, I replied. She winced slightly but didn't argue. The car pulled out of our driveway, taillights disappearing around the corner like the end of a chapter I'd never wanted to finish. Inside, Chloe was sitting on the stairs, her phone in her hands. She's really gone, she said, without looking up. Looks that way. Are you okay? The question surprised me. Chloe hadn't shown much interest in my emotional state since she'd turned 14 and decided I was an embarrassment to her social standing. I'm processing, I said. How about you? She shrugged. Mom's been talking about wanting more out of life for months. I guess I saw this coming. She talked to you about it? Not directly. But she's been different lately. Happier, I guess. Like she was excited about something. Or someone, I thought but didn't say. We'll figure it out, I told her. Whatever happens, we'll figure it out. Chloe nodded and headed back upstairs, leaving me alone in a house that suddenly felt too big and too quiet. I poured myself a bourbon and sat in my chair, the old recliner that Veronica had been trying to get me to replace for 3 years. Now I could keep it forever if I wanted. The thought should have been satisfying, but instead, it just felt empty. Monday morning hit like a hangover I hadn't earned. I arrived at Ashworth Industries to find the parking lot buzzing with the kind of energy that usually accompanied major announcements or layoffs. Given my recent luck, I was betting on layoffs. Margaret Voss from HR intercepted me before I could reach the elevator. "Daniel, perfect timing," she said, her smile carrying the artificial warmth of someone about to deliver news you wouldn't like. "Could you stop by my office before you start your day?" "Sure. Everything all right?" "Oh, just some routine updates. You know how it is." I knew exactly how it was. In corporate speak, routine updates usually meant, "Your life is about to get complicated." Margaret's office was a shrine to motivational posters and company awards, the kind of space designed to make you feel both inspired and intimidated. She gestured for me to sit while she shuffled through a stack of papers. "I wanted to personally inform you about some exciting organizational changes," she began. "We're expanding our strategic development division under some new leadership." New leadership? Veronica Mercer has joined us as VP of Strategic Development. I believe you know her? I kept my expression neutral. "We've met." "Wonderful. Having that personal connection should make the transition smoother. She'll be working closely with Phillip on several high-priority initiatives." "I'm sure she will." Margaret's smile faltered slightly at my tone. "There will be some restructuring as we integrate the new division. Nothing dramatic, just some reporting line adjustments to improve efficiency." "What kind of adjustments?" "Well, your IT support responsibilities will be expanding to cover strategic development's technology needs. It's really an opportunity to showcase your expertise to senior leadership." Translation: I'd be supporting my estranged wife's professional ambitions while she worked closely with my boss. The irony was so thick you could cut it with a server rack. "Anything else I should know?" "Just that we're all very excited about the fresh perspective Veronica brings. Phillip speaks very highly of her vision and capabilities." I bet he did. "Thanks for the heads up, Margaret. I appreciate the personal touch." "Of course. We're all one big family here." I escaped to my office, a windowless cube farm kingdom where I ruled over 3 junior technicians and enough computer equipment to support a small country's infrastructure. My team, Jake, Tommy, and Lisa, were already deep into their Monday morning routine of pretending to work while actually discussing weekend activities. "Boss," Jake called out as I passed his desk, "heard we're getting some new VIP clients. Something about strategic development?" Word traveled fast in a company this size. "Looks that way. Make sure all the conference room systems are running smoothly. I have a feeling we'll be doing a lot of presentations." "Got it. By the way, the new VP stopped by earlier, asked about network access and system capabilities, seemed to know her way around technology." Of course she did. Veronica had always been tech-savvy, one of the things that had attracted me to her when we'd met at a computer training seminar 23 years ago. "I'll handle any special requests personally," I told him. Around 10:30, I got a call from Phillip's assistant requesting immediate IT support in the executive conference room. When I arrived, I found Phillip and Veronica setting up for what looked like a major presentation. Charts covered the walls, laptops were scattered across the conference table, and the energy in the room felt charged with ambition. "Daniel, excellent timing," Phillip said without looking up from his laptop. "We're having some connectivity issues with the projection system." Veronica glanced at me briefly, her expression professional and distant. "Hello, Daniel." "Veronica, welcome to Ashworth Industries." "Thank you. I'm excited about the opportunities here. I focused on the projection system, running diagnostics while they continued their setup. Their conversation flowed with the easy rhythm of people who'd spent considerable time planning together. The Morrison account analysis should go in Section 3, Veronica said, pointing to a chart, right after we establish the market positioning framework. Perfect. Helena's going to love the revenue projections. These numbers are exactly what the board wants to see. Conservative but aggressive. Show growth potential without overpromising. I fixed their connectivity issue, a loose cable that any intern could have handled, but lingered to observe their dynamic. They worked together like dancers who'd rehearsed the routine, finishing each other's thoughts and building on each other's ideas. All set, I announced. Anything else you need? Actually, yes, Veronica said. I'll need access to the customer database for my analysis. Can you set up administrative privileges? I'll need approval from Phillip for that level of access. Phillip waved dismissively. Consider it approved. Veronica needs full access to develop her strategic initiatives. I made a note to process the request, though something about giving my estranged wife administrative access to sensitive company data felt like a conflict of interest waiting to explode. I'll have it ready by this afternoon. Excellent, Phillip said. We're presenting to the board Thursday morning. This could be a game changer for the company. As I headed back to my office, I caught a glimpse of them through the conference room glass. Veronica was leaning over Philip's shoulder, pointing at something on his laptop screen. Their heads were close together, the picture of professional collaboration, or something else entirely. The rest of the week passed in a blur of setup requests and technical support. Veronica's strategic development division was consuming resources like a startup in growth mode, new software licenses, additional hardware, priority network access, dedicated server space. Every request came through Philip's office with his authorization, and every request put me in direct contact with my wife's professional ambitions. Thursday morning, I was in the server room running routine maintenance when Jake burst through the door. "Boss, you need to see this," he said, holding his phone. "It's all over the company's social network." He showed me a photo from the board presentation, Veronica and Phillip standing in front of a projection screen, both smiling broadly, while Helena Sinclair and the other board members applauded in the background. The caption read, "Strategic Development Division receives unanimous board approval for expansion initiative. Congratulations to VP Veronica Mercer and Operations VP Phillip Ashworth on their innovative vision." "They look happy," Jake observed. "Success tends to do that." "Rumor is they're planning a celebration dinner tonight, somewhere fancy downtown." I handed back his phone and returned to my maintenance checklist. Good for them. But I was thinking about the way they'd stood together in the photo, close enough to suggest partnership, distant enough to maintain plausible deniability. That evening, I drove past Chez Laurent, the kind of upscale restaurant where entrees cost more than my monthly cable bill. Through the large front windows, I could see them at a corner table, wine glasses raised in a toast. Veronica was wearing the black dress she'd bought for our anniversary dinner 3 months ago, the dinner we'd canceled because of my department's system upgrade deadline. I didn't stop, didn't park and confront them, didn't make a scene. Instead, I drove home to a house that felt more empty than it had the week before, opened a beer, and started planning. Because if there's one thing 20 years in IT had taught me, it's that every system has vulnerabilities. You just have to know where to look. Friday afternoon brought an email that made my coffee taste like disappointment. The subject line read, "Organizational Restructuring, IT Department," and the sender was Margaret Voss. I'd learned to dread emails from HR almost as much as I dreaded system crashes during board meetings. The message was a masterpiece of corporate doublespeak. Dear Daniel, as part of our ongoing efforts to optimize operational efficiency and better align resources with strategic initiatives, we will be implementing some structural changes to the IT department effective Monday. Your role will be transitioning to senior technical specialist, focusing on infrastructure support and system maintenance. This adjustment will allow us to bring in additional expertise for our expanding strategic development initiatives. Please see me Monday morning to discuss the details of your new responsibilities and compensation adjustment. Best regards, Margaret. I read it twice, then leaned back in my chair and laughed. Not the happy kind of laughter, the kind that escapes when you realize the universe has a truly twisted sense of humor. Senior Technical Specialist, a fancy title for what amounted to a demotion wrapped in corporate gift paper. Jake appeared at my cubicle entrance, his expression somewhere between confused and concerned. "Boss? You okay?" That laugh sounded kind of unhinged. I was going to say concerning, but unhinged works. I showed him the email. His face went through several expressions before settling on anger. "They're demoting you? That's garbage. You've been running this department for 8 years. Apparently, they need someone with fresh perspective and strategic vision. Translation: they want someone who'll kiss up to the new VP. Smart kid. Something like that. What are you going to do?" Good question. The old Daniel would have accepted it quietly, maybe grumbled to his wife over dinner before ultimately adapting to the new reality. But the old Daniel's wife hadn't left him for his boss, and the old Daniel hadn't spent the last week watching his replacement get built around him. "I'm going to do exactly what they expect," I said. "I'm going to be professional, cooperative, and absolutely dedicated to supporting the Strategic Development Division." Jake looked confused. "That's good?" "Oh, it's going to be excellent." Monday morning, I arrived at Margaret's office precisely on time, wearing my best suit and my most cooperative expression. She greeted me with the kind of enthusiasm usually reserved for root canals. "Daniel, thank you for being so understanding about these changes. I know transitions can be challenging." "Not at all, Margaret. I'm excited about focusing on what I do best." She blinked, clearly expecting more resistance. "Wonderful. Your new role will report to the incoming IT director, James Morrison. He starts Wednesday." "Morrison? Any relation to Morrison Tech?" "Actually, yes. James is the former CTO there. Veronica recommended him highly." Of course she did. My wife was systematically replacing me with people from her old company. The efficiency was almost admirable. "I look forward to working with him." "Excellent attitude, Daniel. This kind of flexibility is exactly what we need during periods of growth." I spent the rest of Monday cleaning out my office and preparing transition documents for my replacement. It was therapeutic in a way, organizing 8 years of work into neat folders and comprehensive notes. Tuesday, I focused on documenting every system, every process, every potential issue that James Morrison might encounter. I was going to be the most helpful, most thorough, most indispensable senior technical specialist in corporate history. Wednesday morning, James Morrison arrived like a corporate tornado. Tall, confident, wearing a suit that probably cost more than my monthly salary, he had the kind of presence that made people stand up straighter when he entered a room. "Daniel Mercer?" He extended his hand with a firm grip. "James Morrison, I've heard excellent things about your technical expertise." "Thank you. I've prepared comprehensive documentation on all our systems and processes." "Perfect. Veronica mentioned you were detail-oriented." "Veronica and I have worked together before." "So I understand. She speaks very highly of your capabilities." I wondered what else Veronica had told him about me, but kept my expression neutral. "I'm here to make your transition as smooth as possible." "I appreciate that. Why don't you walk me through the network architecture? I want to understand our current capabilities before we start implementing upgrades." For the next 2 hours, I gave James the most thorough technical briefing of my career. Every server, every switch, every potential bottleneck and security vulnerability. He asked intelligent questions and took detailed notes. "Impressive setup," he said finally. "Very solid foundation." "Thank you. We've focused on reliability over flashiness." "Smart approach. though I suspect we'll need to scale up significantly to support the strategic development initiatives. Whatever you need. I know these systems inside and out. That's exactly what I was hoping to hear. Thursday afternoon, I was running cable diagnostics when my phone buzzed with a text from Chloe. "Mom's taking me to dinner tonight, some fancy place downtown. She wants to talk about my future." I texted back, "Have fun. Order the expensive stuff." LOL, she seems really happy lately. Different somehow. People change. Yeah. Are you okay with all this? The divorce stuff? The question caught me off guard. Chloe rarely asked about my emotional state, and never with such directness. "I'm adapting," I typed back. That's not really an answer. It's the only answer I have right now. "Okay. Love you, Dad." "Love you, too." I stared at the phone for a long moment after she stopped responding. Chloe was 16, old enough to understand that her parents' marriage was ending, but young enough to still hope it might somehow work out. She was going to be disappointed. Friday morning brought another email from Margaret, this one with better news disguised as routine communication. "Daniel, James has requested that you lead the technical implementation of the new strategic development systems. This is a significant responsibility and demonstrates the confidence leadership has in your abilities. The project budget is substantial, and you'll have considerable autonomy in equipment selection and vendor relationships. Please coordinate with Veronica Mercer to understand the division's requirements. Best regards, Margaret." I read the email 3 times, making sure I understood correctly. They wanted me to build the technical infrastructure that would support Veronica's division. They were essentially asking me to construct the platform for my own replacement success. The irony was so perfect, it felt scripted. I walked over to James's office, my former office, and knocked on the open door. "Daniel, perfect timing. I was just reviewing the strategic development requirements. This is going to be a complex implementation. I've handled complex projects before. I'm sure you have. But this one comes with some unique challenges. The timeline is aggressive, the budget is significant, and the visibility is high. Phillip and Veronica will be watching every detail." "Understood." "Good. I need someone who can deliver excellence under pressure. Can you handle that?" I met his gaze directly. "James, I can guarantee you've never had anyone more motivated to deliver perfect results." He smiled, apparently taking my intensity as professional enthusiasm. "Excellent. Let's build something remarkable." If he only knew how remarkable I was planning to make it. The Strategic Development Division's technical requirements read like a wish list, written by someone with unlimited budget and ambitious dreams. Veronica wanted everything: cloud integration, real-time analytics, automated reporting, predictive modeling, and enough processing power to run a small space program. I loved every excessive detail of it. Monday morning, I scheduled a requirements meeting with Veronica and Phillip. They'd taken over the large conference room on the executive floor, transforming it into a strategic command center with whiteboards covered in flowcharts and market projections. "Daniel," Phillip greeted me with the kind of enthusiasm reserved for useful subordinates. "Ready to make some magic happen?" "Absolutely. I've reviewed your requirements and prepared some preliminary recommendations." Veronica looked up from her laptop, her expression professional but guarded. "I hope you understand the importance of this project, Daniel. The board is expecting significant results." "I understand completely. Your success is my priority." For the next hour, I walked them through my technical proposal. Cloud servers with redundant backup systems, enterprise-level security protocols, automated data integration from multiple sources, real-time dashboard displays that would make NASA jealous. "This seems extensive," Phillip said, reviewing my equipment list. "Are all these components necessary?" "For the kind of advanced analytics you're planning? Absolutely. You can't build a Ferrari with bicycle parts." Veronica leaned forward, studying my diagrams. "What about implementation timeline?" 6 weeks for full deployment. 2 weeks for basic functionality. That's faster than I expected. I know these systems. I know our network. I know exactly what needs to happen. Phillip nodded approvingly. This is exactly the kind of expertise we need. Make it happen. As they returned to their strategic planning, I gathered my materials and headed back to my workspace. But I paused at the door, struck by the sight of them working together. Heads close, voices low, the picture of professional partnership, or something more. That afternoon, I started ordering equipment. Enterprise servers, high-end workstations, professional-grade monitors, networking hardware that cost more than most people's cars. Every component was top tier, exactly what they'd requested. But I also ordered a few additional items that weren't on their list. Monitoring software, network analysis tools, administrative access management systems, tools that would give me complete visibility into everything their division did. James stopped by my workspace Wednesday morning, coffee in hand, looking impressed by the pile of equipment boxes accumulating in our storage area. "This is quite an operation you're building," he said. "They want the best. I'm giving them the best." "The budget approval came through faster than I expected. Phillip must really be pushing for this. He seems very invested in the project's success. And Veronica's success, from what I can tell. They make a good team." I looked up from my installation checklist. "How so?" "Complementary skills, his operational experience, her strategic vision. Plus, they seem to communicate effortlessly. You can tell they've developed a strong working relationship. They certainly spend a lot of time together. That's what it takes at the executive level. Long hours, constant collaboration, shared pressure." He paused, studying my expression. "Must be interesting, working so closely with your wife's new division." "Veronica and I keep our professional and personal lives separate." "Smart approach. Office relationships can get complicated." I wondered if he was fishing for information or just making conversation. Either way, I kept my response neutral. "I'm focused on delivering excellent technical support. Everything else is above my pay grade." Thursday morning, I began the actual installation. Server racks in the data center, workstations in their offices, network connections that would give them priority bandwidth for their analytics processing. Veronica stopped by while I was configuring her workstation. "This looks impressive," she said, watching me install her monitors. "You'll have more computing power than most universities." "Will it do everything we discussed?" "Everything and more. You'll be able to analyze data in ways you haven't even thought of yet." She sat in her chair, testing the keyboard and mouse. "It feels strange, having you build my office setup." "It's just technical work, Veronica. Nothing personal." "Is it? Nothing about this situation feels impersonal to me." I continued configuring her system, not trusting myself to respond immediately. Finally, I said, "You made your choice. I'm making mine." "What choice are you making?" "To be professional, to do excellent work, to support the company's strategic initiatives." "That's all? What else would there be?" She was quiet for a moment, watching me work. "I know this is awkward, Daniel, but I hope we can find a way to make it work." "It's working fine. You're getting exactly what you need." I meant personally, for Chloe's sake, if nothing else. I finished her configuration and turned to face her directly. "Chloe will be fine. Teenagers adapt faster than adults." "And what about you? Will you adapt?" "I'm adapting right now, building systems, supporting strategic initiatives, being the excellent technical specialist everyone needs me to be." Something in my tone made her frown. "Daniel, your system is ready," I interrupted. "Full administrative access, priority network bandwidth, automated backup protocols, everything you requested." I left her sitting in her new office, surrounded by technology that would make her more effective, more efficient, more successful than she'd ever been, and completely visible to me. Friday afternoon, I completed the final network configurations and ran comprehensive system tests. Everything worked perfectly. Faster processing, seamless integration, real-time analytics that would give them unprecedented insight into market trends and customer behavior. I also completed my secondary installations, monitoring software that would log every file access, every email, every system activity. Network analysis tools that would track communication patterns and data transfers. Administrative backdoors that would give me complete access to their systems whenever I needed it. All completely legal, properly documented, and fully within my authority as senior technical specialist. James reviewed my completion report with obvious satisfaction. Excellent work, Daniel. They're going to love this setup. I hope so. They should have everything they need to exceed their strategic objectives. The board meeting is Monday. Phillip wants to demonstrate the new capabilities. Everything will be ready. I'm sure it will be. You've really exceeded expectations on this project. That evening, I sat in my home office, laptop open, connected to the monitoring systems I'd installed. On my screen, I could see network activity, file transfers, email traffic, a complete picture of the Strategic Development Division's digital activities. It was like having a window into their professional lives, and soon, I suspected, their personal lives as well. The old Daniel would have felt guilty about the surveillance capabilities I'd built into their systems, but the old Daniel's wife hadn't left him for his boss, and the old Daniel hadn't been systematically replaced by people from his wife's former company. The new Daniel was just being thorough. After all, they'd asked for the best technical support available. They were about to get exactly what they'd requested. Monday's board meeting was a masterclass in corporate theater. I watched from the back of the conference room as Phillip and Veronica presented their strategic development initiative, using the systems I'd built to display real-time market analysis and predictive modeling that made their projections look like prophecy. Helena Sinclair, the board chairman, leaned forward with the kind of attention that meant serious money was about to change hands. "These revenue projections," she said, studying the displays. "You're confident in these numbers?" "Completely," Phillip replied. "Our new analytical capabilities give us unprecedented insight into market trends. We're not guessing anymore. We're predicting." Veronica advanced to the next slide, showing customer acquisition models that painted a picture of explosive growth. "The data indicates we can capture 30% market share in our target demographic within 18 months. "How?" asked board member Robert Chen, his skepticism evident. "By identifying opportunities our competitors can't see," Veronica explained. "Our systems analyze patterns across multiple data sources, customer behavior, market fluctuations, competitor activities, economic indicators. We're essentially seeing the future of our industry." I had to admit, it was an impressive presentation. The technology I'd built for them was performing exactly as designed, processing massive amounts of data and presenting it in ways that made complex market dynamics look simple and predictable. "The investment required?" Helena asked. "Significant," Phillip acknowledged. "But the ROI projections are conservative. We're looking at potential returns that could transform the company's entire financial position." The board members exchanged glances, the kind of silent communication that happened when serious people were about to make serious decisions. "We'll need detailed implementation timelines," Helena said finally. "Already prepared," Veronica replied, advancing to a project timeline that showed aggressive milestones and ambitious targets. After the presentation, I lingered in the conference room, ostensibly checking the presentation equipment while actually observing the post-meeting dynamics. Phillip and Veronica were surrounded by board members asking follow-up questions, their body language radiating confidence and success. "Impressive technology," Helena said to Phillip. "Your IT team deserves recognition for this implementation." "Absolutely," Phillip agreed. "We have excellent technical support." He glanced in my direction, acknowledging my presence with the kind of nod you'd give to useful furniture. That evening, I sat in my home office reviewing the day's monitoring data. The Strategic Development Division had been busy. Email traffic was heavy, file transfers were constant, and their systems were processing analysis requests at maximum capacity. But it was the after-hours activity that caught my attention. At 6:47 p.m., Veronica had accessed customer files from Philip's workstation. At 7:23 p.m., Philip had sent an email from Veronica's computer. At 8:15 p.m., they'd both logged into the system from the same IP address, an address that traced to the Riverside Hotel downtown. I leaned back in my chair, processing the implications. They weren't just working late, they were working together, after hours, from a hotel. Professional collaboration or personal involvement. The data suggested both. Tuesday morning brought an email from Helena Sinclair's office requesting a technical briefing on the strategic development systems. Apparently, the board wanted to understand the capabilities they'd just approved for massive investment. I arrived at Helena's office precisely on time, carrying a presentation folder and my most professional demeanor. Helena was a woman in her early 60s who'd built her career by understanding exactly how every piece of her organization functioned. "Daniel, thank you for making time. I wanted to understand the technical foundation of yesterday's presentation." "Of course. What would you like to know?" "Everything. How the systems work, what data they access, how reliable the projections are, what the limitations might be." For the next hour, I walked Helena through the technical architecture I'd built. Data integration protocols, analytical algorithms, predictive modeling frameworks, security measures, backup systems. "Impressive," she said finally. "You built all of this in 6 weeks?" "The foundation was already solid. I just added the analytical capabilities." "And you're confident in the system's reliability?" "Completely. Every component is enterprise-grade, fully redundant, constantly monitored." "Monitored how?" "Comprehensive logging of all system activities, performance metrics, user access patterns, data processing loads, security events. I can tell you exactly what the system is doing at any given moment." Helena's eyes sharpened with interest. "Show me." I opened my laptop and displayed the real-time monitoring dashboard. Network activity, system performance, user sessions, file access logs, a complete picture of the Strategic Development Division's technical activities. "This is remarkable," Helena said, studying the displays. "You can see everything they're doing? Every file they access, every analysis they run, every report they generate. It's necessary for system optimization and security monitoring." "And this data is archived?" "Comprehensive logs going back to the initial implementation. Full audit trail of all activities." Helena nodded thoughtfully. "I'd like you to prepare weekly reports on system utilization and performance. The board wants to track the ROI on this technology investment." "Absolutely. What level of detail would you like?" "Everything. Usage patterns, productivity metrics, system efficiency, security incidents. I want to know exactly how our Strategic Development Division is using these resources." I prepared the first weekly report that afternoon, focusing on system performance and utilization metrics, but I also included user activity summaries, who was accessing what data, when they were using the systems, how much time they were spending on different types of analysis. The patterns were revealing. Philip and Veronica were accessing the systems constantly, often simultaneously, frequently during evening hours. Their collaboration was intensive and continuous. Wednesday evening, the monitoring data showed something new. At 9:30 p.m., both Philip and Veronica logged into the system from their respective home addresses. But they were accessing the same files, running complementary analyses, and exchanging data in real time. They were working together remotely, coordinating their activities across different locations. Or they were on the phone together, sharing a working session that had nothing to do with strategic development. Thursday morning, I delivered my first weekly report to Helena's office. She reviewed it carefully, asking detailed questions about usage patterns and productivity metrics. "They're certainly making full use of the system," she observed. "Very intensive usage. Well above average for executive-level users." The evening and weekend activity is particularly high. Strategic development apparently requires extended hours, or they're very dedicated to their work. Something in her tone suggested she was drawing her own conclusions about the nature of that dedication. Friday afternoon, James stopped by my workspace with news that made my coffee taste like victory. "Excellent work on the strategic development project," he said. "Helena specifically mentioned your technical expertise in the board meeting. I'm glad the system is meeting expectations." "More than meeting them. She wants you to expand the monitoring capabilities. Full performance analytics, productivity tracking, comprehensive utilization reports. That's quite a bit of additional monitoring. The board is investing serious money in this division. They want complete visibility into how those resources are being used." "I can definitely provide complete visibility." "Good. They're also talking about making this the template for other divisions. If the strategic development model works, they want to replicate it across the company." I nodded thoughtfully, already planning the expanded monitoring systems. "I'll need additional server capacity for the enhanced data collection." "Budget approved. Whatever you need." That evening, I sat in my home office, reviewing 3 weeks of monitoring data and planning the expanded surveillance capabilities Helena had requested. The patterns were clear, the implications obvious, the opportunity unprecedented. Phillip and Veronica thought they were building a strategic development division. What they were actually building was a comprehensive record of their professional and personal activities, monitored and archived by someone who understood exactly what he was looking at. The old Daniel would have felt conflicted about using his technical access for personal purposes. But the new Daniel was just following orders. Complete visibility, comprehensive monitoring, full utilization tracking. They were about to get exactly what the board had requested. And so was I. The expanded monitoring system went live on a Tuesday morning that felt charged with possibility. Helena's request for complete visibility had given me authorization to implement surveillance capabilities that would make the NSA jealous. Every keystroke logged, every email archived, every file access recorded, every phone call through the company system captured, every calendar entry tracked, every location check-in monitored. I called it the Strategic Resource Optimization Protocol. Helena called it Essential Business Intelligence. What it actually was a window into every aspect of Phillip and Veronica's professional and personal relationship. The first week of enhanced monitoring revealed patterns that confirmed what I'd suspected. They were working together constantly, but their collaboration extended well beyond normal business hours and appropriate professional boundaries. Email exchanges at midnight about strategic positioning, file sharing sessions at 6 a.m. labeled competitive analysis, calendar entries for off-site planning meetings at restaurants, hotels, and locations that had nothing to do with business development, but it was the phone call logs that provided the most interesting data. Wednesday afternoon, while I was reviewing system performance metrics, the monitoring software flagged an extended phone conversation between Philip's office line and Veronica's mobile phone. The call lasted 47 minutes, well outside normal business communication patterns. I pulled up the audio file, completely legal under the company's communication monitoring policy, and listened to what was supposed to be a strategic planning session. "The Morrison account projections look solid," Philip's voice said through my headphones. "Good." Helena seemed impressed with the revenue forecasts. "She's impressed with you, the whole board is. We make a good team. We make an excellent team. In every way." There was a pause, then Veronica's voice softer now. "Phillip, we should be careful about mixing business with what? With the best thing that's happened to either of us in years? With something that could complicate our professional relationship. Our professional relationship is perfect because our personal relationship is perfect." Another pause. Then, "What about Daniel? What about him? You said yourself the marriage was over long before you met me." "It was. but he's building our technical infrastructure. He has access to everything we do. Daniel's a technician. He fixes computers and runs cables. He's not strategic enough to understand what we're building here. I stopped the recording, leaned back in my chair, and smiled. Not strategic enough. That was going to be fun to prove wrong. Thursday morning brought an email from Helena requesting a special report on strategic development productivity metrics. She wanted detailed analysis of how the division's resources were being utilized, with particular focus on efficiency and ROI indicators. I spent the morning preparing a comprehensive report that told the story the data was revealing. High system utilization, extensive collaboration, significant after-hours activity, and productivity patterns that suggested either extraordinary dedication or activities that extended beyond professional responsibilities. I kept the language neutral and technical, letting the data speak for itself, but anyone reading the report would notice the unusual patterns. Helena reviewed my report that afternoon, asking pointed questions about the collaboration metrics and after-hours usage statistics. This level of evening and weekend activity is unusual, she observed. Well above normal executive usage patterns, I confirmed. And they're frequently accessing the same files simultaneously? Extensive real-time collaboration. Very intensive coordination. From different locations? Sometimes, though the IP address logs show they're often working from the same location during evening hours. Helena nodded thoughtfully. Interesting. And you're confident in the accuracy of this data? Completely. The monitoring systems capture everything. Everything? Every digital activity related to company resources, email, file access, phone calls, calendar entries, location data from company devices. I see. Continue monitoring and provide weekly updates. The board wants to ensure our strategic development investment is being used appropriately. Friday afternoon, the monitoring system captured something that made my pulse quicken. Veronica had accessed confidential client files from Morrison Tech, files that contained proprietary information about her former employer's customer base and strategic plans. She was using her access to our systems to gather intelligence about her previous company. That evening, I sat in my home office reviewing the data trail. Veronica had downloaded customer lists, contract details, pricing strategies, and competitive analysis reports. Then she'd transferred the files to encrypted storage and shared access with Phillip. Corporate espionage, using company resources to steal proprietary information from a competitor. Helena was going to find this very interesting, but before I reported it, I wanted more evidence. One incident could be explained away. A pattern of behavior would be much harder to dismiss. I didn't have to wait long. Monday morning, the monitoring system flagged another data transfer. This time, Veronica was accessing client files from 3 different companies, all competitors in the strategic development space. She was systematically gathering intelligence from every company she'd had professional contact with over the past 5 years. Tuesday brought email exchanges between Phillip and Veronica that revealed the scope of their operation. They were building a comprehensive competitive intelligence database, using information gathered from Veronica's former employers and professional contacts. The Hartwell Industries data is particularly valuable, Phillip wrote in an email marked confidential. Their pricing strategy gives us a significant advantage in the upcoming bid process. Veronica's response was equally revealing. I can get more detailed information from my contact there. She owes me a favor from the Morrison days. They weren't just having an affair. They were running a sophisticated corporate intelligence operation, using Veronica's professional network and our company's resources to gain unfair competitive advantages. Wednesday morning, I prepared a special report for Helena. This one focused on data security and appropriate use of company resources. I documented the unauthorized access to competitor information, the suspicious file transfers, and the pattern of activities that suggested corporate espionage. Helena reviewed the report in her office, her expression growing more serious with each page. "This is quite concerning," she said finally. "The security implications are significant." "And you're certain about these findings?" "The data is comprehensive and conclusive. I can provide detailed logs of every incident." "Do that. I want complete documentation of all inappropriate activities." "There's more," I said, pulling up additional files. "The phone call monitoring has captured conversations that suggest coordination with external contacts for intelligence gathering." I played selected excerpts from the recorded calls, conversations where Veronica discussed gathering proprietary information from former colleagues, and Phillip outlined strategies for using that information against competitors. Helena listened in silence, her expression growing colder with each revelation. "How long has this been going on?" "Since the Strategic Development Division launched." "Possibly longer." "And you have documentation of everything?" "Complete audit trail. Every file access, every data transfer, every communication, every coordination activity." Helena closed the report and looked at me directly. "Daniel, I want you to prepare a comprehensive presentation of these findings. Include everything: the unauthorized data access, the corporate espionage, the misuse of company resources, the inappropriate personal relationship." "When do you need it?" "Tomorrow morning. I'm calling an emergency board meeting." That evening, I worked until midnight, preparing the most important presentation of my career. Comprehensive documentation of Phillip and Veronica's activities, detailed evidence of corporate espionage, clear proof of misused company resources, and a timeline that showed how their personal relationship had enabled systematic betrayal of corporate trust. I included audio excerpts from their recorded phone calls, screenshots of unauthorized file access, and data analysis that revealed the scope of their intelligence operation. The presentation was devastating, thorough, and completely factual. It was also my masterpiece of professional revenge. The old Daniel would have felt guilty about destroying 2 careers. But the new Daniel was just doing his job, protecting company resources and ensuring appropriate use of strategic development systems. Tomorrow morning, the board would see exactly what their investment in strategic development had produced. And Phillip and Veronica would learn what happened when you underestimated someone you considered not strategic enough. The emergency board meeting was scheduled for 8 a.m. sharp. I arrived early, setting up presentation equipment with the same meticulous care I'd used to build their strategic development systems. Every cable connected perfectly, every display calibrated precisely, every audio level tested and optimized. Helena entered at 7:45, followed by the other board members, their expressions suggesting they understood this wasn't a routine meeting. Phillip and Veronica arrived at exactly 8 a.m., looking confident and professional, apparently unaware that their world was about to implode. "Thank you all for accommodating this urgent session," Helena began. "We've discovered some serious concerns regarding the Strategic Development Division that require immediate board attention." Phillip leaned forward, his expression shifting from confidence to concern. "What kind of concerns?" "Daniel will present his findings." I stood, activated the presentation system, and began with a simple title slide: Strategic Development Division, Comprehensive Resource Utilization Analysis. Over the past month, I've been monitoring the Strategic Development Division's use of company resources as requested by the board. What I discovered goes well beyond normal productivity tracking. The first section covered their basic activities: system usage, file access patterns, collaboration metrics. Nothing alarming, just establishing the foundation for what was coming. Phillip and Veronica exchanged glances, still not understanding the scope of what I'd uncovered. However, detailed analysis revealed several concerning patterns. The next slide showed unauthorized access to competitor information. File downloads from Morrison Tech, Hartwell Industries, and 3 other companies. Dates, times, specific documents accessed. Veronica's face went pale. Phillip's jaw tightened. These activities represent clear violations of corporate data security policies and potentially illegal corporate espionage. I played selected audio excerpts from their recorded phone calls, conversations about gathering proprietary information, coordinating with external contacts, and using stolen data for competitive advantage. The boardroom fell silent, except for the sound of their own voices discussing activities that violated every principle of ethical business conduct. Furthermore, analysis of communication patterns and system usage indicates that company resources were extensively used for personal activities unrelated to strategic development. I displayed email logs, phone call records, and calendar entries that documented their relationship. Late-night strategy sessions at hotels, weekend planning meetings at restaurants, off-site analysis at locations that had nothing to do with business. The pattern of activities suggests systematic misuse of company resources to facilitate and conceal an inappropriate personal relationship between division leadership. Phillip stood abruptly. "This is outrageous. You're violating our privacy, monitoring personal communications." All monitoring was conducted under board authorization for resource utilization analysis, I replied calmly. Every activity documented occurred using company equipment, company networks, or company time. Helena's voice cut through the tension like ice. "Is there more?" "Yes. Financial analysis indicates that strategic development's projected revenues were artificially inflated using stolen competitor data. The division's apparent success was built on corporate espionage and fraudulent projections." I displayed side-by-side comparisons showing how their revenue forecasts matched stolen pricing strategies from competitor companies, how their market analysis incorporated proprietary information they had no legal right to access. In summary, the Strategic Development Division has engaged in systematic corporate espionage, fraudulent business practices, and extensive misuse of company resources. The boardroom erupted in urgent whispers and shocked expressions. Phillip and Veronica sat in stunned silence, the weight of documented evidence crushing their ability to respond. Helena called for order. "Phillip, Veronica, do you have any response to these allegations?" Phillip attempted damage control. "These are misunderstandings, taken out of context. Our research methods may have been aggressive, but nothing," Helena interrupted. "The evidence is comprehensive and damning. Board members, we need to vote on immediate action." The vote was unanimous and swift. Phillip and Veronica were terminated immediately, their access revoked, their Strategic Development Division dissolved. Security would escort them from the building within the hour. "Furthermore," Helena continued, "we're referring this matter to legal counsel for potential criminal prosecution." As the meeting concluded, I packed up my presentation equipment while Phillip and Veronica were led away by security. They passed my table on their way out, Veronica's eyes meeting mine for a brief moment. "You planned this," she whispered. "I just did my job," I replied. "Comprehensive monitoring, complete visibility, appropriate resource utilization. Exactly what the board requested." Phillip stopped beside me, his face flushed with anger and humiliation. "You think you've won something here?" "I think I've protected company resources and ensured appropriate use of strategic development systems. This isn't over. Actually, it is. Your severance packages require authorized signatures." I pulled out the termination documents Helena had prepared, placing them on the table along with a pen. "Sign here." Phillip's hand shook as he signed his name to the papers that ended his career. Veronica followed, her signature barely legible. As they walked away, escorted by security, I gathered the signed documents and headed back to my office. James was waiting for me, his expression mixing admiration with concern. "That was quite a presentation," he said. "Just comprehensive data analysis." "The board is talking about promoting you to Director of Information Security. Apparently, your monitoring capabilities impressed them." "I'm good at seeing patterns other people miss." "What happens now?" "Now I get back to work. The Strategic Development Division may be gone, but the company still needs excellent technical support. That evening, I sat in my home office, reviewing the day's events. My phone buzzed with a text from Chloe. Mom called. She's moving back to Morrison, Texas City. Says she needs a fresh start. I texted back, people make choices, then they live with consequences. Are you okay with all this? I'm exactly where I need to be. Dad? Yeah? I'm proud of you. The message surprised me. Chloe hadn't expressed pride in my actions since she was 12 years old. Thank you. That means more than you know. Love you. Love you too. I closed my laptop and walked to the kitchen, where I poured myself a bourbon and stood at the window overlooking our backyard. The motion sensor light illuminated the space where Veronica used to tend her garden, now overgrown and neglected. Tomorrow I'd start my new position as Director of Information Security. I'd build monitoring systems for the entire company, ensuring that corporate resources were used appropriately and that strategic initiatives were built on legitimate foundations rather than stolen intelligence. I'd also start renovating the house properly, not the half-finished projects that had accumulated over the years, but comprehensive improvements that would make it exactly what I wanted it to be. And I'd continue being the kind of father Chloe deserved, even if her mother had chosen a different path. The old Daniel had been adequate, reliable, content with steady progress and predictable outcomes. The new Daniel understood that sometimes life required more strategic thinking. Phillip had been right about one thing. Innovation did require vision. He just hadn't understood that the most dangerous innovations come from people you underestimate. I raised my glass in a silent toast to the empty backyard, to new beginnings, and to the valuable lesson that life had just taught everyone involved. Some curricula are more expensive than others, but the education is always worth the price.